Okay, let's go to Nolan.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So, you can hit the next slide, Tom. So I also did truth or redistribution. Um, but to me, it was saying that it was we a lot of Black Americans are devalued, and to this day have not been given the chance to redeem that value. Um, and that is an issue because next slide, please. It stems from slavery. In my opinion, the Black lives have never been fully able to be worth anything in America because we were or black yeah we black Americans were never able to redeem their value because throughout history, starting from slavery in America, we were treated as property. We were devalued because of the profit and greed that many forebears had. Next slide. This continues today in the case of wage disparity. As we continue to move through history, it's become more and more evident that the wage gap between African Americans and, to be honest, any other race, ethnicity is increasing. Next slide. This shows the median annual incomes of ethnicities and white people with a bachelor's degree. And as you can see, Hispanics and blacks have lower income than the people with the same degree, just of different nationalities. Next slide. And this shows that it's even worse for black women, black and Hispanic women. As you can see, it's 66% and 58% of women compared to 100% for white men. I unfortunately I couldn't find anything about white women, but I'm sure it's still higher. Next, next. So my solution to this is increased education possibilities. Normally, I do not like the school system, but I do believe that with education comes more possibilities to better oneself. Next. if we if we give people the chance to have better education and more possibilities to have that education, then the opportunities for a career and to open up in a better career system will be much higher than it is now. And with that better opportunities for careers, the wage gap decreases. Next. Uh, Again, this is a possibility because with education, the more people know, the more better suited they'll be able to help out their neighbors, and with that help creates a cycle of help as like a pay it forward type of method. People will be able to help and then continue to help by gaining that education and continue to grow in career wise. Thank you.
Okay, great. And um, I think you can see, again, there's a theme here about investing in people. So where does a country put its money? You know, we say follow the money is a good rule of thumb when you're trying to figure out what a city is doing or what a country is doing, absent their rhetoric. So not what the politicians are saying, but we at the Civic Lab teach. Look at the budgets. Look where our government is spending their money, and so we're hearing some themes here about investing more in our people, especially people that have been treated poorly for so long. So this idea of where does a government place its bet, if you will, is a theme. Okay, all right. So here's no. Ooh, what happened? No. Oh, this is funny. Okay.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, did we do that? No, we just did this. Oh, okay. I'm confused. There we go. That's what I meant to do. Thomas.
Sorry, I won't have video. I had some connection issues. I welcome everybody. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'm Thomas Cooper, Cycle 47. If you wouldn't mind advancing the slide. So the article I chose is The Great White Heist by Michael Harriot. You can advance the slide. The conversation around reparations needs an update. Far too often, the conversation around reparations finds itself limited to slavery. Slavery was so long ago, this, that, and the other. But when the conversation is limited to slavery, it actually leaves out a great deal of the wealth redistribution that happened after slavery ended. If you wouldn't mind advancing the slide, please. A slavery focus leaves out cases like BRIGGS v. ELLIOTT, where in 1948, in Somerton, South Carolina, in a town that was 3/4 Black, the Black citizens had to walk long, arduous miles to get to school, while with their tax money, the Somerton whites bought themselves new buses. When the Somerton Blacks asked for just one of those buses, they were denied, which resulted in a pretty monumental case. And with the GI Bill for vets returning from World War II, the GI Bill paid tuition costs and guaranteed them home loans. And of course, Black vets were left out of this. And in the New Deal, a series of colossal government programs designed to lift America out of the Great Depression, again, Blacks were not included. And if the red line just left Blacks out, we would have been lucky. But with the creation of the Homeowners Loan Corporation, or the HOLC, which was designed to refinance mortgages at lower rates to prevent foreclosures, to decide what areas were good investments, they created these maps to determine what areas were risky investments or what areas were safe investments. And of course, an area could be determined risky just by being near or containing Black citizens. These maps got picked up by the banks, and the harm of these maps persisted long after they were outlawed. If you wouldn't mind advancing the slide. This is an example of a such map. You can see area D6 is a neighborhood in Philly called Nicetown. So this is a 1937 HOLC map showing what it would look like for a neighborhood to be determined as hazardous. And while the rest of America was recovering from the Great Depression, it was maps like these that blocked Black America from accessing the same recovery. Next slide, please. The Center for Investigative Reporting found that after a year-long analysis, Blacks and Latinos were denied home loans at much higher rates than whites. This is a chart to demonstrate that, if you wouldn't mind advancing, please. Harriot's article mentions research done by the Brookings Institute, which shows that the median net worth of Black Americans is much lower than that of other racial groups. And the reason I include this, and the reason he does, is to show that these policies have had their intended effect. If we wouldn't mind advancing the slide, please. And so let's talk a little bit about Nicetown as we explore the impact of these policies. Next slide, please. In an article written by Charles D. Ellison, he talks a bit about Nicetown, and he goes on to describe their quality of life indicators as almost ranking dead last in the city, and they have a life expectancy of 10 years, approximately, less than other areas in the city. So the impact has been real. negative, of course. So we're at 1 minute. Let's finish things up. Next slide, please. Of course, things would be bad enough if you need, solutions. Excellent. I'll just run through this quickly. I think we should restructure education funding. 30% of the budgets come from property taxes, and that's a great deal. And property taxes is a bit of a poison well when neighborhoods have been essentially sabotaged by the government. Next slide. In my view, the government sabotaged these areas, and it would be only justice for them to reinvest to bring them back up to speed. Next slide. And of course, reparations itself. This was not something that was social engineering. This isn't something that was accidental. These policies were intended to have the cost that they have had, and it was the government whose fingerprints are on that gun, so they are culpable for the crime, in my opinion, and they should pay reparations. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, sir. Great zeroing in on Nicetown with that extra detail. Okay, Rico, the floor is yours.
Hey, everybody. So I titled it, Where Do We Go From Here? Next slide, please. I actually did the same article as Thomas Cooper, The Great White Heist by Michael Harriot. And I'm not going to repeat what he's already said. Nice slide. Next slide, please. So this was just a collage that I wanted you guys to take note of. In the upper right-hand corner, you see just a guy, you know, he's kind of small, but you can't really see it. He's colored and he's sleeping, but he got those books right there. And, you know, you see the white thief just taking it, you know, just taking what he worked so hard for. And this is us, metaphorically. You know, we're asleep and we don't know that we're losing and we're missing out on. We don't know what's going on around us. Just below that is a neighborhood life expectancy in Chicago. Pretty small, but as you can see, blacks are going pretty quick. You see if you can, I wish I could use the mouse. That's actually red line drawn in Chicago. The majority of the red that's the south side. On the far left and bottom left corner, you see African Americans in communities, and that's just recently. You know, the dark blue is that's the upper north area, kind of Chinatown-ish and all in that area. And I'm sure I don't need to explain to you, but we're not over there as much if you don't believe the actual picture there. Next slide. The same chart that Thomas was showing you, just a little bit more updated. And this came from Forbes, just showing that the wealth gap between white people and other races. Next slide. So they finessed us. As Thomas told you guys, essentially we were paying for the school buses for the white people. We couldn't even go to these schools, some of them. And then the ones that we could go to, we had to walk up to 9 miles to get there. Imagine your little brother, your little sister, your little cousins, they got to walk through a stream and it's raining, so it's flooded. We all know how tall a 6-year-old is. A lot of them didn't make it. So these are people, they just wanted to go to school. They just wanted an education, but you know, they didn't make it. But that's like, and at the same time, we were paying for the other people to make it to school. That's like us living in a rundown house, beat up house, but we paying for the next door neighbor to have central air, heat, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And this is just showing that, you know, pretty much in South Carolina, it was 40% black people. All of the taxes were pretty much going toward paying for white schools. None of the money was going toward black colleges. So if a white student wanted to go to another, they wanted to continue their education, they were able to go to one of what is a dozen different schools, but black people had to choose from one. That school was not funded by us. None of our tax money went to that school. Our money went to the white schools that we couldn't go to. Next slide. So come to World War II. Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed the GI Bill, which pretty much guaranteed that World War II veterans coming back could get funded for mortgages, so on and so forth, but they didn't get it. So not only did they, and we're not even gonna talk about what they went through while they were at war. being on the front line, being the targets, the target practice for the enemy, so on and so forth. They were denied home loans once they got back. They were denied student loans. They were denied regular loans. But apparently they were guaranteed it. What changed? Next slide. Oh, wait, go back. I want to make one more point. So going back to school, they were guaranteed to go to school or whatever. They couldn't get into the white colleges. So naturally they had to go to the HBCU, which was already full from the black students who were already denied from going to the other colleges before they even made it back home, before the veterans made it back home. So at the end of the day, only 20% of the black people who were veterans were actually able to attend school, not just because they didn't have the money, so on and so forth. There was no room. Next slide. Yeah, we can fast forward to salute. Keep going. One more. One more. And all right, so redlining wasn't outlawed until 1968. So that was pretty much 89 years of them just taking our money and applying it to themselves and, forgetting about us. The solution, please. One more slide. In my opinion, they owe us 400 years. So for 100 years, we don't pay taxes. We only pay, so we're granted full admission to any college at half the cost until, and I'm sure they got to make money too. We don't want them to fail until the people of color students reach at 25% of what the maximum capacity in that school is. The following 100 years, we would only pay a quarter of what white people are being taxed at that then time, still being granted all of the other previous benefits. After that, for the following 100 years, we're only paying 50% of what white people are being taxed at that time. And then the same for the following 100 years, we're only going to pay 75% of what white people are being taxed at that time. And then at that point, we're given the option to apply for financing with a 15% off discount, which would last for an additional 100 years. And that's mine.
All right. Thank you. That's looking into the future. I don't think we can wait 400 years, my friend. So I would just take your solution and collapse it to really fast, but appreciate the creativity. And Dennis.
All right. I did mine on what defund the police can do. So one of the barriers they had in this, they talked about in this article, were the lack of data. So the FBI launched a project to track instances of police use force, but only a fraction of the 15,000 police departments across the country submitted data. You can go to the next slide. And right here, this is actually the number of agencies participating. This is 2020, so this is this year. So only 42% of the enforcement agencies in the country actually participate in use of force data. And at the very top of each of these bar graphs, those in that dark blue line are the incidents that are actually being reported. Below that, the agencies are just reporting 0 incidents, and below that one, the light blue, are no responses. Next slide. Some other barriers that we face. If council members want to, use the funding and for different areas, they face backlash from police unions. And one of the things policing unions do are resisted diversifying the police force, campaign against candidates that are soft on crime, collective bargaining agreements, and then also this year, the New York police endorsed Donald Trump for, president. Get the next slide. And these are kind of my solutions. So, organizations that organizes the community and city council members to move dollars away from the police. Oh, my bad. One of these is called Reclaim the Block that they do in, I think it's Minnesota. that they started. Next slide. Another solution is education. So inform others about the history of police violence. Next slide. And my last one is to donate to those organizations that are trying to defund the police. That's it.
Awesome. And there are several groups working on that issue right here in Chicago. And what I'm going to do is respond to each intern personally with comments on their presentation and send you links relevant to the topics you raised. And I will put those links in one document on the presentation page. So in a few days, you can check back and sort of see the collective fruit of those labors, where what your comments and solutions have triggered in me to connect you with different resources. And then we'll put all that in one place. All right. Just want to make sure everybody, I believe everybody has gone. Has anyone, did we miss anybody?
Yeah.
Me?
John Tapper.
Duchamp. Okay.
I sent you an email that no, I revised when I got your feedback, I revised my email, I revised my PowerPoint, and I sent you another email. But I can go last while you pull it up and let somebody else go.
Oh, I think you are. I missed you, brother. You're here. You're here. You're the next one.
Yeah, I revised the email, I revised my PowerPoint.
All right. Let's see.
So if you could, yeah.
Let's see if I can find it.
It says final revision, and it's in your email.
All right. Yes, here it is. Yes, sir.
And Tom, before we start Deshaun's, I didn't get to go yet either.
Yes, you go.
Or
okay.
Diana. Did Diana go?
No. I didn't either. Too.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't go either.
There. Yeah.
Oh, I missed.
Hi.
Oh, that's why I missed. I jumped. There's like four people, bunch of people. I just missed you guys right here. No wonder. Okay, we'll cover you. We got you.
We can skip mine if we have to, because a lot of people did mine.
Absolutely not. I have no idea why you even offered that up.
I'm just saying, because like 5 people did mine pretty much.
No, it's all right.
I still.
But they're not you.
All right. Okay.
Everybody presents.
Okay. Do we see that one now?
Yeah. Okay. So my camera is not on. I'm little internet issues, but I'm going to try my best to, present this. So, I wasn't really big on protests, but reading Rebellion Works by Jamon Jordan made me want to go out and protest and fight for the things that so many African Americans have fought for so many years. So I pulled up a data right now that what African Americans have been protesting for so many years. So this is what some of the data that I pulled up and what really African Americans really want. And just protests in general, what people have been protesting for so long. Next slide. Many of us don't know that rebellions actually started in Africa many years ago when it came to the Africans being enslaved. Kings and queens went out to war to fight the Portuguese and the British for enslaving their Africans, and that's when the first rebellion and protest actually started. Next slide. This is pretty much some of the pictures that I actually pulled up and wanted to include in my presentation, because it has stemmed from slavery from way back when Africans were protesting about being enslaved and not valued. way back in the beginning of slavery. Next slide. These are some of the protests that African Americans have been protesting over the years. It started, few of them started in the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, and it poured over into some of the artistry of hip hop artists in the late 80s and going forward. Next slide. Today, this is the present day for today, or what Black Lives Matters, what majority of America is protesting for: equal rights for African Americans, equal rights for Hispanics, just equal rights for LGBT community, and just overall, just just rebelling against what has become the norm for some people. Next slide. And this is pretty much my my solution. Well, we can come up with my solution and also summary. We can continue on to protest and rebel if we have to, just in order to get our voices heard, and for things to change in society. And that's my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Make some noise. That's a great point. Remember the great quote from Frederick Douglass, where he said that power never concedes anything without a demand. It never has and never will. And so the need to speak up and to be out in force with protest is more present than ever. Okay.
Yeah, I wish I could have went more in depth, but I know I had to narrow it down. But it's a lot more information. So if you all wanted to go back and read Rebel Works, it's a lot of information in there for anybody that wants to know more about that.
Okay, let's go to Chris. I went back to the links I missed. Okay. Are you with us?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. So I also did defund the police, just like I believe like 5 other people did. So we can go on to the next slide. So what I found I knew this fact, but I forgot about it, was this quote that many departments got their start hunting down Black people who had escaped enslavement. Decades later, police are enforced segregation of entire cities and beat Black people for attempting to exercise their civil rights. Now, this is the same system that is currently policing us. So if this is where they got their start, how are they going to change so quickly to, instead of keeping us enslaved, both physically and financially, how are they going to help us out? So can we go to the next slide? So these are the issues we need to change. We need to change our justice system, our police system. We need to update police training, get rid of or not get rid of, but restructure the police unions, which have too much power in some states and cities. And we also need to change the regulations that protects police officers from getting, arrested and charged and convicted with murders or any amount of crime. I know too many police officers personally who have gotten away with a lot of this, and it's something that I can't stand. Next slide. This shows that 98.3% of police are not held accountable. Out of all of these, we've only had one officer convicted. And Black people are most likely to be killed by police 3 times more than any other race. And they're 1.3 times more likely than unarmed Black people, or unarmed people in general. Next slide. We can go to the next one. So where do we start? Well, we need to start with data. We have no data that shows the full statistics, just because what someone else had already mentioned. When Obama was, in office, he did try to set up a database for it, and they found out that the only people or only departments that were reporting any amount of the data were the departments that didn't have any issues. It's not that nobody was reporting; it's that only ones who were reporting were the ones who had no issues, who had no police brutality, because they were such a small city and a small community that were predominantly white. There was no data collection for it. And as well as that, we need to work on creating and updating a way of getting this information. It's as simple as, a coroner has to go through the person's cause of death, and they can just easily check a box that says by police brutality or by police, the cause of it, being a gunshot wound caused by the police. They don't do that currently. There is no system for that. And another way is to, update police training. Right now, the police officers are trained to shoot to kill first. They're taught to empty as many rounds into a suspect until they can no longer move or are no longer a threat. That in itself is the reason why we have people with multiple gunshot wounds to their bodies. And I also believe the police should have bi-yearly psych evaluations. A lot of these guys are coming. Sometimes they even come from the military, and already they've gone through so much stress and anxiety that mentally they might not be prepared to govern or to police people. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The other issue is, the police unions. So we need to restrict their power. We need to renegotiate the contracts that we have with them currently. They have too much freedom or too much control in some cities where a police officer who has been arrested cannot be questioned or cannot be interrogated until a specific amount of time has passed. So in other words, enough time for them to come up with a plausible story to get away with what they did. And that's not right. As of right now, I believe there's 15 states that have that kind of rule in place, and that was created by the police union. The police union also has these contracts set up for 5-6 years, at a time, and it's very hard to get those rules to be overturned or overcome by the time that the new cycle comes around, because you have new people in office who are being paid out by the police unions. Like someone stated earlier, the police union this year in New York endorsed Trump. I don't think that police unions should have any political power to sway anything. That's just too much in their hands. Go ahead and move to the next slide. The other issue is the judicial system, and that overall needs to be overturned. We should not have private prisons. People should not profit off of other people going to jail. We should, take that money and use it to educate people in lower income neighborhoods, build community-based organizations. We need to, we also need to work on the rehabilitation of the people who do go to prison, instead of just storing them away and locking them up for 5-6 years. Let's work on getting them into trade jobs, or let's get them, educated so that when they get out, instead of putting the stigma of them being in prison, why not give them some sort of structure in order for them to become someone else when they come out of prison? And that's something that is not really focused on right now.
Thank you.
And also,
that we got you over time, but I must say it has definitely been a pleasure for the first time in my life to actually have to stop you from talking rather than ask you to speak up. So, great job.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Moving on.
That's me. Hi, everybody. Cycle 47. Karima Mohammed. My topic is Towards Cure by Tamara A. Holmes. Next slide, please. At the beginning of this year, racism was declared as a pandemic and a public health threat in many cities. or so to speak, nationwide, because of the impact that was having in blacks. Even we're in 2020, it still feel like back in the days that we used to see. When the pandemic hit, it was more on the black than the whites. Some data shows that the blacks were more positive, tested more positive than the white, and was more deadly, more black community than the white. Next slide, please. This is tied to racism again, not having affordable health care. That affects the maternal health. Women can get pregnant and not be able to see a doctor that can facilitate or easy the pregnancy. So most of the time they may not see a doctor in their early pregnancy time. Also, diet-related diseases can be killing a lot of Black people. That is because there is not affordable health insurance available. Next slide, please. And there was some statistics done by some doctors and published on this article that shows the study was done in Milwaukee. One third of the population of Milwaukee is Black, and from that, by March, 3/4 was tested positive. Next slide, please. Besides the medical issue, racism can affect many wide areas. If you can click it, this is a video that will show you Ahmed Arbery getting shot just in broad daylight. Can you click it? I don't know.
I don't think we have time to show the video, but
it's 40 seconds.
I'm not even gonna. This one I'm gonna actually. We're not gonna view videos of people being, and there's reasons for that. I know you're intent, but yeah.
Okay, no problem. So the other impact of the racism, the systemic racism, will be the employment rate during the pandemic. As you can see, I found this. I found this on IDES website, where it clearly shows how big the gap is between the Black and the whites, the Asian, the Hispanic is. You can clearly see it. I don't want to get into deep in each line. Next slide, please. Next slide. So there was a protest happen almost every city regarding the health insurance not being affordable. Next slide. According to CDC, there was Blacks were more hospitalized during the pandemic than whites, and also the mortality rate was very high. As you see, 2.3 times higher than the Blacks, the whites. I'm sorry. Talking about the solution, employment rate. The government obviously need to work more on inclusion and making healthcare affordable. Next slide. The other thing for health-related diseases that's killing mostly Black community, the rich people or whoever is investing should be opening more fresh markets, make it accessible to the Black community. Also creating awareness, low price or affordable healthcare. Next slide. Health education for new parents or pregnant women, also about diet-related diseases to decrease the public health issue. Next slide.
Okay, thank you very much. A call for more public stuff. We need more public stuff, is what I'm hearing.
Kenima, when you said next slide, was there something that wasn't there? You had a few more seconds to go.
I think there was one slide.
Can you summarize it on your own in like a minute? Whatever your final conclusions were, if they didn't get in the presentation.
No, that was it.
Okay.
Just check. That was
All right.
Thanks, Kitty.
Thank you.
Hey, it's me, Jessica. And I I did my presentation on micro interventions for maximum effect. And next slide, please. All right, so micro interventions for maximum effect, that was by Sarah Lazarovic. And first thing is, what is a microaggression? Can you click the link inside of the presentation, please? You might have to control click.
Is SlideShare deactivated? No. Once they're embedded.
Yeah, I don't think the links are active in SlideShare.
It's fine. Okay, so basically, the image depicted, it was from the article itself in the Yes magazine. The image depicts a Black man carrying a bunch of like microaggressions on his back, right? So it's a bunch of tiny burdens that weigh heavily on the backs of Black and brown people. And the article stated that it was a term coined by the pioneering Harvard professor, Dr. Chester Pierce, in the 1970s. And according to the article, he was the first Black man elected president of his high school, the first to play at a white university in the South, and the first full professor of Massachusetts General Hospital. And he even had a mountain in Antarctica named after him, which I thought was pretty cool. So what are examples of microaggressions? Well, my picture would have showed you that, but it's glances, it's clutching your purse, it's demeaning comments that that people say to you, which in turn normalizes these sorts of things, right? It normalizes if it's not addressed. So if you don't say anything, people are going to continue to say, oh, that's fine. Okay, next slide, please. So why are microaggressions an issue? Microaggressions an issue? Well, for one, they're rooted in bias. And like I said, they normalize discounting people of color due to their implicit bias. And it spills over into positions that are supposed to be impartial, like judges, juries, healthcare, hiring, etc. And it ends in citizens not being able to enjoy the benefits of having a constitution. Next slide, please. And how will micro interventions help? It informs the person of what they've done. It reduces the normalization of the stereotypes. It creates a sort of checks and balances for bias, because let's be honest, a lot of people do this already. It's not, the problem is not that you do it. The problem is, do you remind yourself not to when you do? It leads to more diversity and inclusion in positions of power. And what happened?
You can't see it?
I don't know what just happened.
What's
oh, there it is. And it holds individuals accountable for decisions that they make based on bias. Oh, someone's messing with my my keyboard that's across the room. Sorry. And it holds individuals accountable for decisions that they make based on the bias that they have inside. Next slide, please. Here it shows the diversity, like the benefits of less microaggressions, right? So you have people who have been polled, and 60% of the employees reported that they were more likely to see their ideas developed because they were given a fair shot. People didn't go based upon their bias on people in general. The picture beneath is actually from a scholarly study on the thing, like the psychological effects of microaggression on people, right? It causes anxiety. It causes all types of things like depression and mental health issues. Next slide, please. And what's my solution? To continue to educate others on the impact of these biases. If you witness this sort of behavior, if you see something, say something, like the great John Lewis says, if you see something, say something, and continue to upset the stereotypes, because if it's blatantly in people's faces, the success of others, they cannot hide it. Like, people don't go by word of mouth anymore. They go by seeing things for themselves. And by being the change that you want to see, you actually are impacting people's perceptions and upsetting the biases that they create in their head. Next slide, please. As I said, reduce these stereotypes by discrediting them. Enhance people's view on your group by being the change you want to see. And this one actually depicts how artificial intelligence has a bias as well, because of course it's created by human beings. And we kind of talked about that yesterday when we had tea. So there are, like, even a computer will think, or will create a negative idea of people of color based upon the person who programmed it. So we have to keep in mind that we need to, even when you're feeling like, hey, I can judge this person, you check that reason why you're judging that person inside. And that goes for everyone, not just white people, not just people who are in positions of power, because we all do that. We all immediately assume something about someone, but it's what you do after you make that assumption is what's going to affect change. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. A really fascinating point there, as programmers and people involved in technology, that the technology that we are constructing can itself be discriminatory. And people are finding about this, that in startling ways, that algorithms and things that seem to be scientific, since they were created by human beings, and if they were created by white human beings, they might carry bias as well. And that's pretty friggin' scary, actually. Okay. Did we do Diana? I think
Yes.
we did. No. Diana.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, but we can pass next.
The next slide is.
Next slide, please. Okay, the name of the article that I am interested in presenting today is the Cities Declare Racist and Public Health Crisis. So next, please. Less than a year prior to COVID-19, the city of Milwaukee and county had declared a racist, a public health crisis. Health officials were already collecting database in races and ethnicity, which showed that Black people, who represented a third of Milwaukee population, accounted for nearly quarters of least confirmed COVID-19 cases. And next, please. So now in the in the week of the police killing of George Floyd, the major health organization are acknowledge that racism is a determinant to public health. Nearly the 70 local jurisdictions have made the designation, most of them doing so as protest and demonstration over racial inequality erupted across to the nation and the globe. The Dr. Collins, who is the dean in the University of Mexico, highlights the racism at additional stress to the lives of people already trying to figure out how to pay their bills or feed their child. Next, please. So, I researched more recent statistics from March 1st to November 25, the 2020. about the numbers of the deaths by races and ethnicity, and you can see the difference between the Black people at 46% compared to the others. Next, please. So and I show more about how the financial and health impact of COVID-19 varies widely by race and ethnicity, with Black people at 40.7% compared to the rest of the population. Next, please. So I want to talk about this first before I start with the solutions, because in recent years, as high rates of maternity mortality in the United States have alarmed, and one statistics has been especially concerned. According to CDC, Black women face significant higher maternal mortality risk. Maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. Next, please. One solution that helps and protects pregnant Black women start in May 2018 by Baltimore Healthy. They working to reduce prenatal health disparities. They provide prenatal vitamins and nutritional information to pregnant Black women and the server communities. In some Chicago organization, I searched about it, some Chicago organization and birth centers that are helping saving the lives of Black women during pregnancy, childbirth, and after childbirth, included Black Mama's Mother, Black Women's Health Imperative, and Black Women's Justice Mission, but there's a lot of organizations work with. Next, please. So in these last slides, I want to talk about the Black Matter, health and legacy and our future, and inequities in health begin early in the life, and effectively reducing the cost for investing in early childhood in nervous research reveals that starting early can have dramatic lifelong positive impact on health. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I hear a call for more public investment. I think everyone has gone now? Is there anyone who has been left out because I skipped over you?
I haven't gone yet.
Javon, all right, because you're right here. All right. I just got to click on your link. Okay.
All right. Good morning, Cycle 47. My name is Javon Jackson. Next, please. Today, I will be going over the article of Truth and Redistribution by Mr. Derek Hamilton and Naomi Zudue. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. So first, I'm going to discuss a couple issues at hand. So Blacks have been dealing with a lifetime of discrimination, and in turn, it's led to wealth disparity between non-white communities and whites due to political and economic inequality. And it's very apparent during these times of the coronavirus pandemic that we are being oppressed, that we are not receiving the necessary needs that we need in order to make it through these current times. Next, please. And to continue on with that, we continue to fight the odds as Blacks and non-whites as a whole, as we have been outmatched within the apparent land of the free. So we haven't been properly compensated for the hardships that we went throughout history, for the wrongdoings that were done upon us within history, such as slavery, as well as during the Jim Crow era, where we were physically battered, we were bruised and violently discriminated against, as well as being segregated due to the color of our skin as well. Next, please. So here is some data in regards to the wealth disparity within the United States, as well as the wealth gap as well. So on the left-hand side, you can see that on average that Black people are making less than $20,000 with income within a Black household. And as you can see, the median value for all families should be at least within 100,000. But it's seen that whites are actually above that average, where they're making at least $120,000 to $140,000 within a household. And on the right side, you can see that there's a racial income inequality across the United States, where most most households are white households, and the pink areas shows where the white household income is actually greater than the Black household income. And in most of the United States, this is apparent for every state except for Wyoming, where Black household income is actually greater than the white household income. Next, please. So what can we do? So the three solutions that I proposed are education, future generation investments, and it all starts within the household. So we have to be able to educate each other, educate ourselves on our history, because that seems to be the number one thing that's been hidden from us, and it creates a point where Black people don't necessarily know how much power they actually have. Next slide, please. My second solution is to begin investing. The one thing that I've learned is you have to learn how to invest. That's the one thing that keeps us from that keeps the richer getting richer and the poor getting poor. We don't know how to invest. We need to advocate for learning how to invest and how to do taxes within our education system, within middle school and even high school, to create situations for us even after we graduate from high school. And either we might not want to go for a higher learning, and we might want to create our own businesses. But at that point, we just have these skills in order to build our own investments, be able to know what we're investing in, and creating multiple streams of income for ourselves. Next, please. And my final solution is build our own businesses. Anthony pointed this out earlier about self-sufficiency. If we all know of Black Wall Street, it was a flourishing point within American history until I feel as if until whites gained knowledge of it, and they believe that Black power is something that they don't want to deal with. So I feel like Black owned businesses is just one piece of the puzzle that can lead us into a time of self-sufficiency. I believe we all have the power in the world to build our own economies, and we have the power to build our own political views. And we just have to be able to take that step and have that courage to be able to do that ourselves. I believe that's the end of my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think that is everybody.
Yeah.
And an incredible diversity and quality of subjects and thought that is humbling. It's going to take a little while for me to digest all that, but I will do my best.
And Tom, can I make a couple of announcements because I've got to go to staff meeting?
Yes,
them
please.
later. So cycle 47 on the calendar, you'll see that our all skate makeup is at 12:30. p.m. Okay, so I will see you all then, since we didn't get our time then. Yeah, I'm gonna let Tom wrap it up. I really don't have the words to express all. Like if I say great job, that's not sufficient. So I will have to find a different way to express that to you when I've got some time. Tom, the interns have a hard stop at 11:45. You may not need that much time for wrap up, but I'll see y'all later. And Tom, I'll find another way for us to meet together. But thank you so much. As
Yes.
always.
Thank you. You're entirely welcome, Paige. Thank you. Okay, my good friends of Cycle 47. I feel like we've known each other only a short time, but I feel like we've covered a lot of ground together. I do so wish we were in the same physical space together, but we're just going to have to make do with this Zoom space. So I will just share some thoughts with you. One, from our time together, I think one mandate I would put upon you is to be generous. I think that that's underneath a lot of the civic work that we've discussed. The sense of, regardless of your situation, how tough it may be, how pressed you are, how needy you may be in tough situations yourself. But in order for this work to go forward, you have to have a generous spirit and say, I'm willing to share, I'm willing to sacrifice, I'm willing to put some of my blood and sweat and tears into this work, even though I'm not going to make maybe any money off of it, or could cause me some strife or stress. So this spirit of generosity, I believe, is required. And also a belief that you can make a difference. So I can't argue with you to convince you that you can make a difference. I think we've seen ample evidence that people, even of very modest circumstances, who come from backgrounds that you might not think they would be leaders, according to some stereotypical view of what a leader is. I think we've seen from our research and from our visits of our guests that even people that do not seem to be leaders, you know what I mean, who would not seem to be thought to be the people to take us to a better place, are. And oftentimes they are the only ones. So when you think about yourself, like, oh, I don't have any money, or I'm not sure about where I'm going to live, or whatever it is that you might be your inner critic, don't let that stop you, but believe that you can make a difference, and a big one. I ask you where you put your empathy. That's a word that's come up many times in our discussions. And so I ask you to think about the things that you're not thinking about, and where you might be more empathetic, and to sort of build that muscle. Think of it that way, in your own way, in your own time. It could be something simple like eating a kind of food that you don't think you like, you know, a certain kind of food from a certain kind of nationality or something. Even something as simple as reading a newspaper article or a magazine article about something that you don't think you're interested in, just to challenge yourself. Little things, not big things, as a way to build your empathy muscle. Then I ask you, what makes you mad? You know, there's the image of the straw that breaks the camel's back. I think you've all been very vocal about what makes you mad. And I ask you to reflect on that and don't let that go. You'll get busy with work. You'll get busy with family, as you should be. You'll get busy with, getting by in COVID, just making sure you're sane. But don't forget, the things that make you mad are important clues. They're important lessons to you of what yourself is telling you, that you should listen to it. And that is very important. As I said in our earlier classes, we tend to be a polite society, and sometimes we don't like to raise our voices, and sometimes we avoid conflict. But when you pay attention to what makes you mad, you're stepping into that space of saying, I will be open to change. I will be open to doing things that maybe I didn't think I should do. I didn't think I should, who am I to fight against police brutality? Who am I to fight for changing the name of Douglas Park? right? And it makes you bold. And that is what we need. We need people to be bold. And I ask you, what will you make? So as interns in IC Stars, you are already making things. And as you work for your clients and as you move into your business life, you will be about making things. Now, maybe they may be things that we can't see with the naked eye, like a program, like a piece of software, but maybe you'll be in the world of actually making physical things, you know, as part of your job. But in the world of civics, we are also about making things. So action doesn't happen in your brain. You have to move out from the private space into the public space. And the way you do that is by making something happen. It could be a meeting. It could be a volunteer project. It could be coaching one kid. It could be writing something and then publishing it, you know? It doesn't have to be a big, crazy thing like you're going to start a nonprofit and raise $1 million. It could be a little thing. But I ask you to think about, what do you want to make? And who will help you make it? And then I ask you to think about the people coming behind you. So even though you are young leaders yourselves, it's not too early to think about the next generation of young leaders coming up behind you, which includes cycle 48 and cycle 49 and cycle 50, who are already waiting in the wings, anxious to get what you got. And so when you are moving on in your life, don't forget about IC Stars, all right? They're going to ask you to donate, obviously, and I hope you will. They'll ask you perhaps to come back and be guests. They'll ask you to come back and help, as I'm sure you've been helped. So that's all part of your power of making new leaders come up behind you, even though you're young yourself. And that work never stops. So whatever situation life brings you in, wherever you are, always think about the young ones who are there in your space, whether they're younger employees that you happen to be working with, or younger people, say at your church, or younger people in your community, whatever it may be. Keep your eyes peeled for those young leaders, those young people who need that little help. They need a little push, just like you've been given pushes, just like you've been given some tough love here, right? Just like you've been given resources and all kinds of stuff inside the IC Stars environment. Now it's your turn. You can do it, and you'll be able to do it very, very well, and you should, and I hope you will. And I'll share with you my own, I guess you could say my own mantra, which is listen, learn, and lead, in that order. And I think if you do that, if you do listen and be receptive and really hear what people are telling you, and if you then use that as a prompt to learn and to be humble and to say, you know what, I didn't really know about that, or I'd like to learn more about that. That is a very good mindset for a change leader. And then it's time to lead. And my final thought to you, cycle 47, is then to go out and start something. Make it happen. And with that, I conclude Civics 101 for cycle 47. And I think we have a few minutes for just general comments and questions. The floor is open for a few minutes before we have to go.
I have something I want to say. There was something I was prepared, but I got nervous and I was skipping over. But I want to say thank you for those. I learned some lesson even from this presentation. The one who discussed about microaggression, and I think it's Jessica and Nikki. Thanks so much. That was really informative, and I learned a lot and kind of remind me what I experienced coming over here, emerging, even though a lot of time we talked about white supremacy, you know, the racism is always white and black, but as a migrant also we face a lot of that migration in many different ways. So I just, want to say thank you. That was a good lesson. And thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, I have also a couple. A lot of this was very informative on my end, especially. I didn't hear a lot of people presentation because my internet was acting up, but the few I've heard was Thomas, RICO, when it came to redlining. That was information I wasn't even aware of, or, I've heard of redlining, but I didn't know it was that serious. But at the same time, we made some progress, but not a lot. And just throughout the years, through history, I wish a lot of this was taught in the classroom. And, I think we'll come so far with the society and, being educated in what's been going on all these years. But it's just even on my end, Rebellion Works. It was very informational for me to learn about that piece of history that I didn't know about, and all these different organizations that started, their protests, and especially when it came to African American communities in developing their own schools, their own businesses, their own churches. And it just made me open my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know, and now I can really understand and move forward. This is a good lesson.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I just want to say, Tom, it was great meeting you. I'm great as this civics class. I'm sure as a cycle, we have learned a lot of information that, has came to us, and we will definitely we have already been sharing the stories, of the kids we met and Fight for 15. So we will continue to do that. And thank you for what you are doing. And we appreciate you.
Well, thank you as well. Please all feel free to put your concluding thoughts in the chat. It could be a few words, it could be a sentence. That'd be great. We'll save the chat as a document, as also an archive of this class. So please, if you don't feel like speaking in public, just put stuff in the chat right now. Other thoughts or comments?
I just wanted to say this whole experience from the first civics class has been really enlightening, and it's made me rethink how I approach civics. It was originally something I didn't really approach just because I just perceived a lot of the people engaged in civics as being corrupt, or, I just didn't want to be a part of it. But that's part of the problem. And if we don't at least try, nothing is going to change. But thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Wonderful. And I should say that I'm available to continue the conversation. If anybody wants to reach out via email or do a Zoom one-on-one or with a group of people to continue the conversation, that invitation stands. So we'll just keep that on the table. Okay. Last chance for thoughts or anything on your mind.
My thought is, I wish classes like this would be more embedded in our education system, colleges, high school, even middle school and kindergarten, to have a real civics class that attacks issues that are going on around the world, so that as we're growing up, as children are growing up, they'll be able to understand and articulate, what they're seeing, what they're hearing from their parents, what they're seeing on TV, what they're hearing from their friends, even social media. There's not a place where kids can come and learn about these things and be comfortable in that space. So I wish this type of class would be there, would be embedded more strongly in our education system. And we had to come to IC Stars to experience this type of class. If it wasn't for IC Stars, some of the information, the things we learned today, or things that we know right now, we wouldn't be self-aware, or we wouldn't realize. So yeah, no, that was just one of my thoughts. Thank you so much for carrying the conversation on beyond just basic education and all that stuff.
I hear you, and I recognize that is a big need in our society. That's pretty much what I've done my adult life, is try to fill that need. I think someone said a couple of times, the history is hidden from us. Your history, Black history is hidden from Black people. But I think civic history, the true revolutionary nature of America is often obscured by the racism and bad things that America has done. But there's also a radical strain to America in her labor movement, in her struggles for freedom. So there are at least two histories in America that's going on. The one that's the bad history that is oppressing us, but there's also the history of liberation and activation and smart people, tough people working for the betterment of others that should be lifted up and should be known, just as you are learning about these great stories. There are so many other stories that we could share. So with that, my good friends of Cycle 47, I bid you all a safe New Year's. Someday we'll be out of COVID and maybe we'll get together for some drinks or something. But until then, everybody be safe, be well, and be strong. And we'll say goodbye for now.
Same to you, Tom.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Be safe.
Have a great
Thank
one.
you.